Hopefully, sorry if anyone that's been waiting. I know we're a few minutes late because we always seem to suck at live streams. I don't know what the
Yes.
deal is there. Yep, there we go. We are live streaming. So hey, sorry we're late. We thought we were going. We thought we were live. So we had like 5 minutes of conversation. So let me once again formally welcome everyone to an episode of Industry Relations with Rob and Greg. This is your co-host, the Notorious Rob. And as always, the fabulous Greg Robertson, everybody.
I'm kind of used to like the Zoom filter that kind of smooths your skin out. And
you got to come up with some
or anything else, man. I don't know.
Yeah. Instagram plus Zoom or whatever, AI. Anyway, so assuming we are live, I guess, you have the ability to message us or comment, and I think our producers should be able to see that. We thought we would go live because we didn't record on Friday. And, we thought, we enjoy live streams when we do manage to put them together, and technically they go okay. Because it allows us to just sort of go back and forth. So this is a little bit of an AMA, I think, ask me anything for both of us. But in the event there are no questions, because that's entirely possible, because we might be live streaming to like one person.
Or less than one, yeah.
Yeah, or whatever. Supposedly 4 viewers. That's great. We're going to start just having a conversation about a topic. And I thought, Greg, we might start with it's a relatively small news, but it could be big, which is that Pulte Homes has filed an objection to the Sitzer-Burnett settlements, but of the corporate settlements. So it's Anywhere, Remax, and Keller Williams settlements. This just hit the wires, I think, yesterday. People are starting to react to it now. So let me ask you for your reaction off the top of your head.
Well, I mean, again, what does they say? The opera isn't over till the fat lady sings, right? So, I mean, I think we've been projecting or, making predictions, I should say, of whether this thing goes through or not, right? I think NAR wants it to go through, and they're everybody get on the bus, let's go, right? And mid-year's coming up. Let's all plan for this and make it happen. But like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face here. So there might be, those guys. I think also what the other thing that had the drop was the home services thing. They got kind of Supreme Court didn't want to hear them, but at the same time, they said it was too early to, treble the damages and make them pay. Right?
That's right.
So I think the latter was the big win there.
A little bit of delaying tactics, I suppose.
But what do you see about what Pulte's doing? I mean, let me get your take on like valid, not valid. I mean, maybe you can describe it for everybody.
It's kind of valid, but at the same time, I'm not sure that the judge would reject the settlement agreement based on this, right? Because what Pulte came out and said was essentially three things. And the third one maybe is the most serious. What they said was, number one, we haven't seen a plan of allocation, right? In other words, like who's going to get how much. So they don't know. They can't estimate how much.
The lawyers are going to get all the money. I mean, we all know.
Well, we know this, and I think when we did the maths, I can't remember in a past couple episodes ago, I thought it was like $12, per home seller. And maybe with the NAR settlement, it might be like $40, so, but in fact, what they're saying is there's been no plan of allocation, right? That's been submitted by the lawyers, who are in the settlement. And the second thing they talked about was how the way that you're supposed to go about filing a claim, it doesn't work for someone like Pulte, because you have to fill out basically like a form, right? Because again, like this was intended for individual home sellers, right? So they say, look, I sold a home in Kansas City 2 years ago. This is the address. Here's, what they're saying is we sold 29,000 last year, right? So
right.
Over a 4 or 5 year period, we're looking at 100,000 homes. There's absolutely no way we can go in and fill out individual forms. Please make it where we could like upload a file, right? To sort of whatever. That seems like a fair thing. At the same time, like I said, the point of the settlement wasn't for, giant publicly traded home builders, right? The point of the settlement was for individual home sellers. So I'm not sure I see the court here rejecting the settlement, right? I could see him ordering the lawyers to be like, listen, come up with a way of dealing with a Pulte, right? Come up with a way.
Right.
Like if you have multiple, like you should be able to upload a file, maybe you got to file some plan of allocation and specify, okay, who's going to get how much, and here's the formula or whatever it is, right? Whatever they come up with. And then the third one about we didn't get notice, I'm sure that's just, like there's be a hand slap, like, hey, you're supposed to provide notice, who's doing it. And it's not the lawyers, right? They typically engage some third-party company. There are companies who specialize in sort of administering these, class action claims. So that's kind of how I see it. I'm not sure that I see the judge rejecting the settlement agreement, right, over this. Having said that, the bigger question is, okay, Pulte, and they're the third largest, right? So I don't have the top 100 list off the top of my head. But fact is, we haven't really talked about builders, right, in this. I mean, we kind of touched on it. We haven't really talked about them. But yeah, it's a different story if you've done 100,000, right? Like if you've paid commissions on 100,000 sales, the way I look at it, chances are they're not going to be happy with whatever recovery they could get under these settlements, right?
I mean, like you said, I mean, if there's, I mean, they could probably make an argument for all the work that they would have to do to submit whatever, it would be not worth the $12 per house or whatever.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Yeah.
So I mean, so let's just take like say Pulte, NAR, I don't even know, like some of the, but these are all names we've heard, Hovnanian, I don't know, right? I mean, these are companies who have sold tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of homes over the past 4 or 5 years, and they have a lot of money, right? So it's not the case where they have to rely on this.
Yeah, I mean, they could be like, I get some of these things in the mail sometimes, a class action. Hey, you bought this iPod from, 2002 that Apple had to like pay you, and if you want to get your $9,
that's right.
Out, like, who cares, right?
Yeah, you're 10%
For them,
off
it could
coupon.
be that type of thing, right? Yeah.
But my point is, like, these guys literally could be like, yeah, we're not cool with this. Screw that. We're withdrawing. We're going to opt out of the settlement. We'll file our own lawsuit.
Right.
That is possible, right? And I think that's the thing that likely has everyone kind of like, holy shit, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But the way I look at it is that would have been possible anyway, right? So it isn't as if Pulte or NAR or one of these guys could not have just said, yeah, we're not going along with the settlement stuff. We're big. We can't afford to pay our own lawyers. We'll pay them, file a lawsuit. We know we're going to win, right? Because of the result.
There'll be precedent. Yeah.
Right. So we could just go do our own settlement with, the defendants, So that's the fear, I think, at this point. So it's almost like Anywhere, Remax, Keller Williams, those are the three that are at issue right now. But certainly we can talk about NAR because we know about the NAR settlement. Like everyone could be like, okay, this may resolve the issue for the vast majority of claims that's going to be out there, right? Because one of the issues here is if you're an individual homeowner, right? Like, okay, let's say I'm like, okay, I'm going to get $40, right? But for me to go hire an attorney and the person like opt out of the settlement, like it's just not worth it. I'm going to end up paying the attorney $50,000, right? To get what? Okay, I paid $15,000 in commissions. It's just not worth it. It might be worth it for Pulte. It might be worth it for builders to be like, nah, we're not going to settle for this. We're going to, and again, we already have law firms on retainer. We're very rich, so we're going to come after you. So there might have to be another settlement, right, with some of these deep pocket plaintiffs.
Yeah, it's going to be a question of like, is the juice worth the squeeze? I mean, if they go through the settlement and everything else, I mean, what else can you get out of these guys, right? I mean, that's got to be part of the rubric they're kind of filling out here of what to do, right?
Right. Now, on the flip side of it is the builders don't necessarily have the greatest relationship with the brokerage industry, right? I mean,
Well, some do, some don't. I think like in Vegas, there's a there's a good. I don't know if it's ever a good relationship with anybody paying money, but I mean, I think it's different in different areas.
oh, yeah, again, it's different by
Yeah,
different builders. Like some builders,
yeah,
like, no, we always offer full compensation to
yeah,
realtors. They're really important to us. Others are like, hey, the market's pretty good. We're going to offer 1% and then
yeah,
$500 and then, cup of Starbucks, right?
yeah.
And the agents get pissed at them and they blacklist them and, whatever, right? All that stuff. So, I mean, if you're a Pulte, do you want to be seen as that? Right?
Right.
There may be a cost to pay. I mean, I don't know if that means anything in the new system, right? So I don't know. Like, what do you think? I mean, do you think that? So let's say Pulte comes back and says, "Yeah, we're going to opt out. We're going to bring our own lawsuit, right, against Keller Williams and Remax and Anywhere." Does that then make the industry look at Pulte and go, "Yeah, you know what? You're a scumbag," right?
Right.
It doesn't matter if the industry did, right? Does Pulte go, "Oh no, we're gonna lose buyers"? Like, I don't know. I actually don't know.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean I guess what do they lose by opting out?
they lose the
12
settlement,
bucks times 12 bucks times whatever.
right?
I mean,
Times 100,000.
and what they gain is the option that there could be, there's what they lose is something they really doesn't have, isn't really moving their needle.
Right,
What they would gain is like by opting out is like have an option to like see how things play out and then, and then go for it. I mean, why not opt out then? I mean,
right,
I don't think that they're ever going to get anything from an agent level, any any sort of pushback. It's not like NAR or Remax or whoever's going to say, don't deal with these guys because they didn't go with the settlement, right? I mean, it's just
yeah,
I don't know if there's a anything they lose by pulling out.
yeah, yeah. And we have a couple of comments here. From Tigo, builders would have and do pay a commission if it's in the MLS or not. I know that's like builders have done this, right?
Yeah.
Um, I guess the question it could get a little bit more complicated, I think, with builders, right? Because how much of it is, really that you got taken advantage of, right? There's something to be said for that. Like an element of this lawsuit is that you have these sellers, right, who aren't experts, they don't know anything, they don't, right? They just kind of go with it and go with the buyer's agent. Okay, cool. I don't have to pay you. I feel like it's a little harder to make that argument when you're Pulte, right? Like you're pretty
Right.
sophisticated. You've been around the block a few times. You know what you're doing. So if you were paying buyer agent commission, was it really because of the rules, right? Or was it because you just kind of did the math and just said, you know what, it's worth it, just pay them.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah, for
Like
sure.
there's something to be said for that. So it's unclear how
And,
that
and,
lawsuit
and
would
they're
go.
they're they're corporations, right? So it's not like they're typically. I'm sure that there was some on staff legal, so their own attorneys that were doing these kind of deals anyway, or
Sure.
so it is not like it's not a consumer protection
Correct.
type of
It is still
thing, right?
antitrust, right?
Okay.
But I'm just saying I don't know how a jury might look at that, right?
Right.
Like it's a little different. Like we know the Sitzer jury, like the Burnett
Yeah.
jury was like an hour later, plaintiff, right?
Yeah.
If
Done.
it's Pulte versus Keller Williams, is that
Yeah. Yeah. The
I don't
narrative
know.
changes. The narrative changes for
They're
sure.
changing a little bit. I don't know if the
Yeah.
jury's sitting there like, yeah, we should really reward these poor home builders, $100 billion home builders. Like they got screwed. It's a little bit harder of an argument to make. I'm not saying it can't be made. So to me, this feels like maybe it's setting up it's potentially a problem, right? Maybe it's setting up the builders, the big ones. Because I figure like if you're a small builder, you've done like sold 3 homes last year, maybe it's not worth your while. But if you're Pulte, if you're NAR, certainly you're looking at potentially millions of homes, potentially millions of compensation paid. You bring a lawsuit. I don't know if anywhere Keller Williams, Remax, NAR would want to actually go through that lawsuit as well, right?
Right.
Because they're going to have to spend money. So maybe it's like, look, what do you guys want? and they come back with, we want $1,000 per, like, and they go back and forth in negotiation. Maybe that's all this means.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it was just something that hit it. So,
And the other thing I don't think we reported on, but it happened a little bit ago, was real, settled, right?
That's right.
That still leaves what we already talked about, the home services guys. They're
Yeah.
still out there. Were there any other ones that EXP? Did EXP settle?
They haven't settled yet, but I'm sure they're talking. I'm sure they've been talking all along.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's going to be, that July timeframe is coming up pretty quick here, so you got to believe people are scrambling for sure.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, I assume everyone will settle. It's just a matter of like how much.
Yeah. And now I think the industry is finally, gelling on. I'm not sure. The other thing was like FHA came out with
That's
something.
Right. And Fannie and Freddie just did as well. Right.
Okay, so both.
Right.
Now we're waiting. Now the VA stuff is still kind of out there.
VA is still out there, correct?
But those entities that you just mentioned say that they will. They won't count it part of the overall percentage of the loan, kind of thing.
It's like a particular rule, something like interested party contributions. I mean, I'm not a mortgage expert. I don't know. We might need to get some mortgage guy on, to like really explain what.
But high level, it's saying basically the thing that a lot of people worry about is that, these loans won't allow this to happen if it's a concession.
Right.
It seems like that, and I think we all knew this. They're everybody wants their bag, right? So if this was threatening their bag, it's like they went to go there. The next thing is to drop is VA, and then it goes back to exactly what you said. Nothing changes really, right? I mean, it's just going to be, a difference of nomenclature, right? I mean,
I don't even think it's going to be that bad. I genuinely. So I was on this panel Friday. I don't think it was live. I think it was live streamed, but I don't know if they recorded it. It was an academic conference put on by University of Minnesota Law School. Once again, I want to thank Professor Cox. I think he's a listener, for inviting me. It was really interesting. But I felt like I was invited to sort of give the industry's perspective on it, and I'm like, I am far from industry defender. That's probably a mistake. You probably want someone who's actually going to really defend the industry, for a contrarian voice. But, I felt like what I wanted to point out was I don't think anything changes. I don't even think so. To some extent, it's nice that Freddie and Fannie and, sort of the GSEs and the banks have come around to essentially say, look, this is not going to mess with the mortgage loan, right? It's not quite what NAR wants to see, which is a specific, like, yes, Mr. Buyer, you are allowed to finance your buyer agency commission. It's kind of there. It's like, hey, if the seller says concession, it's not going to count towards the interested party cap, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, that's nice. So it's that signal. The point I was making on Friday, though, is I don't even think we're going to see that be the norm, because cooperation and compensation survives, right? Like that's the part that I think is I don't know what the next battleground
the compensation goes. The compensation just goes offline, right?
Off MLS.
Yeah, off MLS.
Right.
Well, let's pull that thread. Okay,
sure.
So there was an article. This is a good topic, I think, because I was just talking. There's a young developer I know who's building a company right now, and he actually rents a desk at my garage/studio here. And there was an article in Inman that caught my eye, and I forget the guy's name, but let me see if I can bring it up here real quick. And he talked about name was Patrick Kilner, right?
Okay.
And his thing was like, what agents do post settlement will define real estate 3.0. And I love that phrase, real estate 3.0, right? So his argument is, it kind of goes back to the Web 2.0, Web 3.0, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So Web 1.0 was basically standardization, right? We all had the same forms. We're, there was brokerages. We had, buyer's agency came in, and, that kind of thing. Web 2.0 was, or not web, see, I'm already doing it.
Yeah.
Real estate 2.0 was democratization. Now the listings are everywhere. That kind of redefined what, agents' value proposition got severely changed, right? And then the epoch of real estate 2.0 was the NAR settlement, which now is the delineation to me. And I think in his kind of thing, he didn't really define what real estate 3.0. And I'm thinking about writing about something about this. Is what's now if that's 1.0, 2.0, this is now 3.0. And what is 3.0 about, right? And the arguments that I've been talking to Cole about and everything else is this: okay, consolidation and cooperation got blown up. There is a feeling that how do we keep these people together? How do we keep them cooperating? Right? How do we foster that cooperation? So I think part of Web 3.0 is like this thing of like, there's like, the New Hope, the Empire Strikes Back, and then like the return of, right? No, so like last 2.0 was the Empire Strikes Back, right? Now it's like the return of the Jedi, the return of realtors. Like, how do they come back to like, this vast democratization that has happened, right?
Yeah.
How do they what is their thing here? What are these new tools, right? Because there's a lot of this, as Cole was putting it, he was going to love this plug, by the way, is this peer-to-peer. Everybody's like now talking about I'm just gonna list my house in the market, somebody will come up and buy it, right? But we really think, I think you and I, we think that the peer to professional or peer to advisor is still, we still think the realtors have a strong role in this. But
for sure.
But what is this? And I do agree that there's a new thing coming. And what kind of practices, what type of agent, what type of cool tools are going to be in this kind of real estate 3.0 period I think we're now going into?
Yeah.
I haven't fleshed it out, but it's something I want to write about, but I haven't.
Okay.
So this would be a good way to flesh this out.
I think so. And Jacqueline, we're going to get to your question as well, but let me address what Greg said, because this sort of kind of came up in the conference. This idea that now that we have the settlement, we're going to have these new rules. We're going to take compensation off MLS. This will result in this whole new world. And I'm like, I just don't see it, right? And this notion of like, people will start to go, I think the specific context was now a lot more buyers are going to skip having representation and just go direct to the listing agent, just go direct to like, and I just don't see it. And the example that I gave was, why do we still trade our cars into dealerships? You ever think about that? Like, because when the internet came about, that was one of the things people talked about. So, oh, now we can all go peer to peer, right? I could just go put my car for sale on, whatever, Auto Trader, or
it's convenience is why they do it, right?
Exactly. Right. And I'm like, yes, we could. And then everyone will tell you, look, if you want to get the most money for your use, like when you're just do it yourself, right? Put it online. And it's like, I did it one time, by the way. I had this old truck that I just need to get rid of. So I put it on Facebook and I did it once. And you know what? I don't want to be like dealing with people saying, well, when can I come by for a test drive?
Yeah, God, pain in the ass. Yeah.
Fuck that. I'm like,
plus,
no.
It's a little dangerous too, if you think about it.
If you think about it, so here's my home address. Like it just became, and that's like, you know what? Trade it. Right? Even if I'm getting fraction of what the car's actually worth, I'm just not. And I kind of feel like the same thing will happen here, right? Which is like, okay, yes. If you want to make the most money, so let's put it this way. If you're a home seller and you want to make the most money, right, you probably should sell it yourself. Do a FSBO, okay? Maybe hire like a marketing agency, right, to do all the marketing.
Lawyer.
Right? Hire a lawyer to negotiate for you, and hire maybe one of those MLS only companies that will just, for $400, I'm going to put it into the MLS, whatever, right? Maybe like that's the way. And then you got to deal with the showings. You got to deal with negotiation. You got to deal with all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
If you're a buyer, maybe the best way you can do it is, okay, again, go unrepresented, hire a lawyer, right? Maybe. But again, it's kind of like that car dealership thing. I'm like, yeah, but how many people actually want to do that?
Right.
right?
But you're also like, you're talking about open door in a sense, right? Because I think there's
right,
3 levels. It's like, well, there's most money, and you're right, that should be FSBO. And then the other side of the whole thing is convenience, and
right.
that's open door,
That's open
right?
door, right?
And then the trusted professional, the trusted advisors is somewhere in the middle of that, right?
That's right.
Where they're going to get a good amount of money, but they're going to have, but they have to have some hassle, right? Not total hassle, but and that thing
Right.
works. And I think that middle ground is really, it's
I
pretty
yeah,
solid, right?
yeah, and so I kind of go back to this guy Cole, is that his name? Right.
Yeah.
I didn't read the article, so I apologize, but
Well, the article is written by Cole's the guy that's working on this other thing, but the guy
okay,
who wrote the article, who didn't actually explain what he thought 3.0 was, it's just
yeah,
like he was defining 1 and 2.
yeah,
His name is Patrick Kilner.
okay. I didn't read the article, but I just don't see that. Not with this, right? Maybe there's a time in the future at some point with some major shift where we could see like a real estate 3.0. I just don't see that, right? So any predictions like that to me is like I just don't see it. Nothing will change. The major change, the only real change that I'm seeing is that the MLS is no longer going to be that important. That's the only real change I see coming from this. Right now, I'm certain every MLS executive will disagree with me. I'm certain you are going to want to disagree with me on that statement. But one of the reasons why I think the MLSs and in the industry as a whole is talking concessions up so much is because they want to stay important. I'm like, yeah, except the compensation moved off MLS. So it's going to be offered off MLS, right? So that's how I'm seeing it, right?
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing, another thing, like I may have mentioned this before, but Brian Barrero on one of his Friday Flash emails talked about how all we're doing right now is we're predicting these things, oh, it's gonna be the same, oh, it's gonna be whatever. And to him, he's saying, we can all navel gaze, we got all pontificate, we can, be pundits and talk about that. But until this is over, until we've crossed that line where now it's law, now it's not law, but now it's the policy, the consumer has not spoken yet, really. Right. So we need, I think, we can do all this we're all talking, or all whatever, we're all predicting, we think what's going to happen, but the game has not been played yet.
I agree
right
with that.
And we have to wait till, how does this factor out, right? I mean, are there going to be developed new ways of buying and selling real estate? I mean, because of this?
No.
No.
No, there won't.
Okay, all right. Well, again, that's your prediction.
That's my prediction.
We're going to wait till
that's right.
This happens, and the consumer's now, okay.
That's right.
I'm now, this is this information that was like not really, very upfront before, is now way in my face, right? Ish. What is that going to cause? What behavior is that going to am I going to do now? And like, how does the market react to this behavior from consumers that we don't know what that's going to be yet? So I mean, I'm with you in a sense that I think transaction wise and realtor wise, I think that's not going to change too much on the compensation side, but I still think that the industry has to react to this decoupling, and how do we prevent the MLS from fracturing, and meaning Compass has got their own database, and Keller Williams has their own database, and everybody has their own kind of database. I still think that's a threat. So, and I think the MLS needs to respond to, like, what do we do to like keep these guys happy, right? Well, that's the job they're trying to do.
But here's the thing. What you just said, though, I think directly relates to a comment I saw from Colton, who commented, the MLS is going to be unimportant, but nothing is going to change. Okay, like that's a really, really good point, right? That's a really good point.
Oh,
so,
are you seeing Cole is he on Twitter doing that? Or
no,
something?
he's not. I just saw this on YouTube. I think it's a very good point. We should address it, right?
Okay, all right.
So yeah, I mean, I think what I meant by is the MLS has been like the foundation of everything. So of course, in the longer run, right? What I'm saying though is like the MLS, I don't see anything changing in the immediate near term, right? Like by July, let's put it that way, right?
Right, of course not.
By
Yeah.
the end of the year, something like that.
Okay.
So people, because inertia is a real thing. Like we're gonna keep doing that. I don't. So Greg, to your point, I don't see Compass all of a sudden now going, okay, well, we have our own database. We're off there. Like that's not gonna happen. But what I'm saying is all of the compensation will be off MLS. MLS might have concessions. Here's the thing though, you cannot put concessions like seller will offer 2.5% concessions to the buyer. Like that is a compensation field. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the DOJ, the rules are very clear. If you do it that blatantly and just move compensation to concessions field, we're right back at it. Like, we're right back at it. So I think it's going to be much more problematic. And here's my point. July is not enough time for anybody to figure anything out. And you've been saying that, right?
Yes.
Even the end of the year is not enough time.
No.
Because to your point, consumer hasn't spoken yet. I don't think we're really going to know what the consumer speaking is going to look like for 2, maybe 3 years. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, like a lot of changes, like whatever things have to be rolled out, because the average consumer is in the housing market once every 7 years. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So we're gonna have people who are paying zero attention to this for 6 years, right? 6 years from now, gonna be like,
yeah, but there's the 6 year. There are people from 6 years in past too that are coming up, right? So I mean, it's
sure,
it's a rolling thing.
It's
right?
a rolling thing. But my point is like, it's not like whatever 300 million Americans are like glued to their TV and calling their agents up, like, okay, so what does this mean? That's not happening, right? Like a small segment of the consumers are going to be like, oh, what's all this? Like, tell me more. The vast majority of consumers are not paying any attention to this, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a couple of years, like 2 years from now, 3 years from now. Some buyer's going to be like, okay, I'm looking to buy a house. And some agents have to explain, okay, well, here's how the new things like, when did that change? Well, that changed back in 2024. Like, I'm telling you that's going to happen, right?
No, yeah. And it's going to happen in August when the guy who's buying it, who sold, who bought a house 6 years ago is going to happen. But
sure, but they're in the market today. Okay. So,
but within like the MLS industry or the brokerage industry, let's say the MLS and brokers, MLS.
Yeah.
I think they're going to have to deal with things beforehand on a professional, on an organizational, on an organized real estate level.
Of course.
This is a big enough change that even though you're right, it's going to take a while for these ripples to kind of go out. They're first that the pebble drops right on the MLS's head, right? So
that's right.
They're going to have to come up with something. I think they're going to have to. There's going to be some tools out there, something that they have to kind of. They're going to feel it before anybody else, and I think they have to react to it before everybody else.
Right.
I guess that's my point.
No, I completely agree, and I think probably like the people I'm talking to, I'm sure the people you're talking to are all kind of trying to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
But if we're going down that road, here's the reason why I laughed. Like, what do the MLS have to do to keep the brokers happy? Y'all should leave NAR. That's the first step you need to do. Because I know you and I disagree on this, but I think I'm right on this. And you should probably go and talk to more of the 2 billion club brokers. Dude, they are pissed. They're not happy, like at all. So if you're an MLS, but you're a realtor MLS, and you go talk to one of those guys.
Yeah. I think, it's the deal they could get done. And I'm not even sure they even thought of your scenario of
I just
competitor across the street. Right. I mean, yeah.
How do you not? But here's the thing. Like, I genuinely want to know, right? If you're on the stream right now and you have some knowledge of this, let me know if I'm wrong. Like, if you're an MLS CEO and you go, holy shit, we better go talk to our big brokers and what can we do for you? Now the commissions are off. Now compensation is off MLS. What can we do to keep you happy? Right? And you go talk to a $2 billion club company. I'm kind of like the first to be like, well, you're realtor MLS, so fuck you. Like they may not say it like that, but I think you're going to get some sentiment like that, right? So that's the first thing. Now, all the MLS are owned by realtor associates. What do you do then? Right? So you have a board meeting. Go, hey, what do we do? Like,
yeah,
it's going to be quite some time before I think they can figure that out. And then after that, of course, it's what we've been hearing for the past 5-6 years from companies from places like CMLS and RESO. It's like it's about the value of the data. It's about whatever, all the things other than compensation, right?
Yeah.
What I'm curious about
they're gonna have to bolster tools or ways of fostering community and cooperation.
Sure. Here's the rub, though. When you bolster tools, who does that piss off?
Well, if it's a leveling the playing field kind of vibe with the brokers.
Exactly. Who does that piss off?
Yeah, I mean, but let's
answer the question first.
It pisses off brokers. It pisses off brokers.
It pisses off the exact brokers who are pissed off at NAR right now.
Right. Depending on what kind of application or tool it is. For
right.
Sure. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's just roll back that a little bit, because NAR stance is, as I've seen in videos and everything else, is that they say that, listen to the big brokers out there. You are, you're in the same position you were before all this happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now your little twist on that, and it's not a twist, it's an actual fact, is that, well, yes, that's true, except that you've given my competitors, who are, I'm 2 billion, they're 1.9. Now they're stronger than it was before, right?
Yep.
And there's a nuance there, and I totally understand and get that nuance. It's just, it just smells to me like they didn't really and maybe they should have. Well, of course they should have, right? But there's got to be some, and I know you've proposed everybody pays a little bit less, right? So everybody's treated the same way, but it just feels like an unintended consequence of what came out of those negotiations. But we'll never know for sure.
We'll never know, but again, and I don't want to beat that dead club. So that's kind of what I meant by the MLS. Let's put it this way. This settlement is not good for the MLS. Right.
Because of that, and is that your biggest point too, is that because of what they did to the $2 billion club?
No, because of compensation moving off MLS.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not good for the MLS.
Right.
Let's put it that way. Right.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure you've seen it as well, man. I've already seen the tech guys building compensation networks, like already.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. It's already out there. It's in beta 1.0. Okay, by July, it's going to be fully launched.
Listen, scrapers are going to jail. Okay, so
no, they're not. Why would they go to jail?
Scrapers?
Yeah.
Well, you're violating the terms of that site when you scrape a site. I mean, the terms of that site would say that you can't do that.
Every term of site. And so this brings me back to, remember the search engine IDX kerfuffle from 2005?
Yes.
With Jay Thompson leading the charge? Because there was a point when IDX had this thing about you can't allow search engines to index your IDX website. And people throw a fit. We're like, Google's a real thing. You can't do this. And then we got this huge thing about what's a search engine, what's not.
This is more like when Trulia started out with, scraping sites to fill their site up.
Yeah.
No, this is what this is more like, right?
So I'm just saying, because we have that search engine, what's a scraper when it's a search engine for commissions? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see about that. Kyle asks here, the $2 billion member billing club. Hi, Kyle. Good to see you.
Hey, Kyle.
Gonna have a drink sometime. Will start to do their own thing. They dominate many markets. That's what I'm saying. Is how does the MLS prevent that from happening beyond? I don't think leaving NAR is going to.
No, I'm saying leaving NAR is the first step.
Yeah, I mean
that's the first.
Not requiring NAR membership.
Correct. That would be the first step.
That would be the first step.
Okay. Second step we could talk about further. Tigo said concessions will not be guaranteed or conditions that are not enough. I don't think it's enough based on what I saw in how the rules written. But here's the thing, Tigo, like that's exactly why compensation networks will thrive, because those compensation networks will offer unconditional, unilateral, guaranteed compensation, right? But again, we'll see how the market plays out. But that's
you just said something there. I mean, and I love this
yeah,
compensation network.
yeah.
I don't know if I've heard that term. It's like when I was starting off with I haven't heard the term real estate 3.0.
Yeah.
I have compensation network, commission network.
Yeah.
That's another thing there that I think we're defining categories on the.
It's a whole new business that has just been invented like March 15th, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do want to take the time to answer Jacqueline's question, because we get this question a lot, and I certainly get it a lot. So the question is, I feel like the DOJ is going to intervene and decouple commissions. Do you think this won't happen? I don't think I addressed it at the Friday panel, but I know I've had a lot of conversations. I think we even recorded an episode about this. But I'll just answer it, and I'll ask for your thought as well. Right now, where I sit is I don't think the DOJ does anything this year because it's an election year, and the settlement is really good narrative for the Biden campaign. And I don't think there's any benefit to the Department of Justice intervening now and messing up the boat, because Biden's already out there talking about $30 billion saved, and this is we're doing more to eliminate junk fees, blah blah blah. Now, granted, calling realtor commissions junk fees is a whole separate problem.
Well,
but
that's out of context of how that came out. But
I'm saying that's part of the narrative, and housing will be an election issue. So I don't see the DOJ doing anything this year. Next year's a whole different question. Next year's a totally different question. And it kind of depends on who wins. Well, if Biden wins re-election, there's no doubt in my mind the DOJ will be intervening, will be decoupling commissions. If Trump wins, I'm less certain. Okay.
Right.
So that's the answer to Jackie. And then I have something to add to that. But what do you think, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you. I mean, if you look, I think the DOJ is they're suing Apple, they're suing Amazon, they're suing. They just announced another place they're suing recently. I don't have to Google that, but I mean, they're on a tear, right, as far as for this stuff. But I think I agree with you. And again, I always say this, but and this goes back to a point I made earlier. It's like, to me, it's always a software thing. You ship, you see how the market reacts, and you iterate, right? So to me, for the DOJ to they've got a version 1 of this. Maybe it's an alpha version, maybe it's a beta, but they've got they're shipping something now. The courts are going to ship something, this settlement,
and it's a win. This is seen as a win for the DOJ.
Yeah, let's see how this plays out. As Brian said, Barrero, the consumer has not yet spoken. What loopholes are out of here? I think it's heavy-handed to do too much. They have the ability. The settlement says if they change things down the road, there's no hurry. It sounds like they've got a lot on their plate. If I'm them, I'm like, okay, I think I'm not happy, but we got a settlement. This is gonna ship. Let's see what happens. It says in the agreement we can come back. Let's do that. Let's ship, see what happens, and iterate. So I think I'm with you. Now I don't know. You're throwing in their political, whether it's a Biden or Trump thing. I guess we see Trump as being more pro NAR in our thing there. So maybe that does factor in if they come back at it or not.
Right.
So we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Now, here's the thing I wanted to add. One of the things that was a bit of a takeaway from the panel I was on, the Friday event, was there were a couple hundred state regulators on that stream. And one of the things that was brought up by some of the panelists, not me, but some panelists, was the state regulators, the state antitrust enforcers should get involved. Now that's also specifically contemplated in the NAR settlement. That is something like it's really hard to know. Having said that, in recent times, like especially this year and past year, we've seen state attorney generals be very active in certain areas, like Letitia James out of New York against Trump specifically. But I don't know if it was her or her predecessor that went after NAR, not NAR. I'm sorry, went after the NRA, the National Rifle Association, right? So it isn't as if state regulators are powerless, right? And that is completely unpredictable. I don't know how that goes, right? Because now there isn't this sort of political narrative. Like the DOJ may not intervene, but it doesn't mean that, like, I don't know, the Minnesota, Attorney General doesn't intervene, right? And it's not even an intervention. Like they have their own, they could go on their own thing. And the interesting thing about that is, remember when we were talking about the Bayer cases, the Batten?
Yeah.
And basically all of the sort of federal issues were removed. But what the judge kept alive were all the state law claims, right? Because various states have their own antitrust laws. They have their own various consumer protection type laws.
Well, buyer's agreements are sometimes state law, right? I mean,
Right.
the fact that like
Right.
some states you can't do a rebate for
Right.
some reason,
Right.
some lobbyists got that in there, right? So there's a lot there.
There's a lot
Yeah.
at the state level, and now we're talking about 50 different government agencies, various different political, leanings, and it's really unpredictable.
And
right?
and the way things are going, that and I'm not going to mention these things, but these specific agendas, but I mean, a lot of things, the Supreme Court and others are like making it a lot of things. It's becoming state rights.
That's right.
What used to be kind of a federal thing are now being pushed back to the states, right?
That's
For
right.
Good and bad purposes.
That's right.
I'm sure.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, man. Where I sit right now, I would be worried if I were a working realtor, if I'm a broker in states that have very, very bad fiscal positions. Right.
So I guess what I'm thinking you're saying there is that there's a possibility if a state passes something that it can be deemed some sort of against, not pro business, right? That they could be sued upon. That
no,
some of these
no. I'm saying because a lot of these lawsuits would have giant fines attached to them.
Right.
Right. So I wouldn't put it past, say, California, right, to be like, hey, you know what? We need some money for whatever homeless crisis. Where can we get some? You know what? We should sue NAR and these brokers for violation of some California law.
Right.
Right. And the settlement would be like $1 billion in fines. Right.
Right.
And because that's how it would be characterized. It's not a civil claim. This would be a fine, right, for some breach of whatever state law, right? I'd be a little nervous if I lived.
But I mean, they would first
states.
have to make it a law, right?
No. My point is, they would claim that this already violates some state antitrust law or some state consumer protection law, because that's what the Batten lawsuit was claiming. And I completely understand that I probably just dropped a bomb that's going to create like a fear wave. So I apologize. But I'm not the one who sort of dropped the bomb. I'm saying I was at an event with hundreds of state regulators, and this was brought up. So I'm just relaying.
It's like how
I'm just a messenger. Don't shoot the messenger.
It's like how everybody blames you for the copycat lawsuits, right?
Yeah, it's like I was just pointing out this was going to happen. I didn't file any copycat lawsuits, So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure.
What happens. Hey, so everyone who's on like right now, thank you very much for coming to join us. I think we're 100 subscribers away from hitting 1,000. So since you're already on our YouTube channel, if you haven't subscribed, please consider
hit that bell, hit that subscribe button. Yeah,
we would like to get to 1,000 subscribers so we could get monetized, so we can start paying our producers. That would be real nice. With that said, hey man, this was fun. Yeah. We are going to go back to a regular schedule, I think. But I would actually like to know, for the however many people are on, like, do you guys like live streams? Like, should we do this more often? Please let us know, because we'd be happy to do it. I think it would be just fun, doing Q&As.
Yeah, we just
And by
gotta
the
get
way,
better
if you
at
have
alerting everybody ahead time. That's what we need.
yeah, if you have questions, just general, like whether it's about the lawsuits or about anything else, or Greg's fabulous haircut, like please feel free to send us messages. I mean, y'all know where to find us, and we'd be happy to address that in a future episode. So with that, we're gonna call an end to this live stream. Thanks everybody
Yeah, thanks
for
everybody.
stopping by. Thanks for your questions, your comments, and thank you, Greg. See you next time. Later.